So I think it's a really interesting topic, freedom, and I put this in relation really to what we do in our practice of architecture and interior design. I'm going to start with what defines freedom. I'm going to start with some pictures of some of my absolutely favourite architects and their favourite work. So David Chipperfield, which is a Neuss museum in Berlin, which is beautiful. If you ever get there, it's amazing. Carlo Scarpa, which is he's a mid-century Italian architect, the most beautiful work you can possibly imagine. And then also John Lautner, an incredible American architect from the mid-century as well. But looking at all of these beautiful slides, none of these comply with our building regulations in Sydney, and none of this work could actually be done to that scale in Sydney. So I want to actually talk about what that freedom means, because they're beautiful and they're beautiful sculptural spaces, but if not everyone can use them and not everyone has access to them, does that really define freedom in terms of a design exercise? So I'm just going to run through just a project that's actually been launched today that we're working on down at Darling Harbour. So it's the new towers, residential towers that are going into where the entertainment centre is. And we started with, I'm going to just run you through how we had to deal with the foyer space to get all of those things that are important about letting everyone have access to the space and everyone enjoy and experience the space on an equal footing. So we were given this space by the base architects with DCM, who are absolutely fabulous architects, but you can see we've got lifts here, we've got this really sharp corner, we've got windows onto Hay Street, it's pretty urban, it's pretty dense. It's actually a pretty nasty kind of space, and when we got it, we just thought, what the hell do we do here? So and we've got level changes. So you've got to get up, someone from level where I am up to here and to this height. In terms of wheelchair access, to make that easy, it's a 1 in 14 ramp, which works out to about 12 metres long. So when you look at a lot of buildings and you see all these ramps, that's what it means. So we got this space and we started with the idea instead of fighting this weird kind of shape, or instead of just dressing it up, let's really use this shape to become a concept that we ran through. So we threaded through this idea of threading the space through and following the geometry of the space through there. And then we looked at all the different things that we had to do. We needed to get this stair here, we needed this great sense of entry. We wanted to get accessibility up here, and it's not just people in wheelchairs, it's people that maybe can't walk as well as someone else. It's also just people carrying bags or prams or all sorts of things. It just makes their life easier. We've got the harshness of the street that we wanted to filter through, and we looked at how we actually started to layer those spaces. So you can see we put these long stairs through here, created this great experience of a ramp that came through the space. We had to deal with 230 letter boxes as well, so there's a lot of mailboxes in a room and how you work with that as well. We developed it up to the plan, so this is the plan that actually goes out to the Lend-Lease architects and they develop that up. But just to show also, I mean, it's a bit of an architect's thing, but it's so nice to have a plan that you look at and you think, I just like the look of the plan. There's just something about the plan that feels right when you look at the shapes and the forms on plan. So, there's an experience in doing that. So we prepare hand sketches to kind of work out what that space would feel like. So we've got the stairs that you walk up here. We're looking at some seating groups here. We're looking at threading rope through those spaces to create this screening. And then we've got the ramp that comes up through the back of the space there. So that's how we sort of start to play with the volume. Then the next thing is actually developing up the CGIs that actually like the real renders, so you can really see what the space looks like. And again, we keep working through, but the idea that the threaded space through here that we started with the initial idea just becomes this beautiful pergola type experience. The kind of weird shaped building then makes sense behind it, so we left that quite raw behind the space. So you've got concrete walls that come through. We've got this beautiful, grand but really low level, easy walking platforms that take you up, and then we've got this great ramp that runs right through, that's got screens running through it to the street, and just creates a really great experience for everyone that is using that space. Rope coming through to cover up. We basically have to deal with a lot of crap on ceilings in buildings, so it's just a good way to kind of filter that off and just create a great experience that's not just looking at dressing a space, taking it a bit further. Sustainability. I mean, I'm not going to talk too much about it. This is a 5-star building that we worked on in Melbourne, but I think sustainability obviously is just highly important. And we've got to think about it from a practicality point of view, but sustainability is also developing into other things, which well-being is actually a really important part of sustainability, because if you create great spaces that make people happy, they're actually going to survive a lot longer, and that's a really prime thing of sustainability, and also obviously well-being and is a great point of freedom. So I've actually just shown you Ravenswood Girls' School. We worked on the boarding house for the school because they were finding that the girls go away they're a long way from home. A lot of them are really young. The boarding house was, like a bad motel, and they really wanted to make a great experience for the girls to enjoy the space. So we took ideas of like a boutique hotel and ran that through the school. So again, just some ideas about how you can make that through. Human scale, it's really important in the city, and I think the exciting thing about Sydney and what we've seen the City of Sydney do is they've really looked at this human scale too, which is making Sydney at the moment such a fabulous city. This is a project I worked on called Darling Quarter. So it's 2 big buildings. I don't know if people know it. The CBA sit in. There's a lot of retail at the bottom. So we worked the architects on the building, FJ&T, who are really fabulous architects, worked on the building. But what we did work with Lendlease is worked with the Lendlease, who are the client again, is on all of the shopfront design and how that brief would work to make the building cohesive, to bring the level down to a low level, and also adapt to a whole lot of different retailers. So we've got really great sort of cafes there. We've got Taste on the corner, and they had a whole variety of shop fronts. We've got signage there as well that we wanted to create some sort of consistency through. And then we even had to deal with McDonald's, and McDonald's have a very exact palette of what they want. So we had to work to develop our palette in terms of what they and run it through, so they're all working through there. And again, dropping the umbrellas down really quite low, which again was a bit controversial. I got told off a couple of times by some of the guys at Lendlease, but the height, it feels comfortable. So it's also about freedom. When I'm talking about freedom, it's just making those spaces feel great and people want to be there. And also what we looked at doing is just how to make this green area, again, really adaptable, usable, a friendly space. And it was a very simple idea, is just actually putting a whole lot of directors' chairs and deck chairs onto the space. And then we also added down the track just these great colourful umbrellas. So there's shade there, there's personality there. People sit there from early in the morning. It's a free space. It just gives energy to the area, I think. Urban density. So I'm going to show you a project that our urban designers are working on. It's the regeneration of Newcastle, and I'm not sure if there are planners in the room, but I'm going to talk really simply about the principle that is being talked about in urban density at the moment. But essentially you've got to imagine, we live in a world where we've got say you've got tigers roaming around Sydney. If you keep putting all the houses in all the place that the tigers are, they're all going to die. They're all going to go. But if you concentrate everyone, we can live in a concentrated spot, and the tigers can all live in the space around us as well, because they've got room to roam. So essentially the principle of good urban design is create density, put all your services and things in closely so they're cost effective, everyone's using it, the public transport can be paid for and serviced. And leave those spaces around cities empty. And Hong Kong actually is a really great example of amazing density, where you've got this, you can't move when you go in there, it's very full, but half an hour in a train and you're in the jungle. So, it's quite a sort of ideal city for the way populations are growing, even though we might not want to all live in Hong Kong. But what we're looking at in Newcastle is basically re-energising the city, increasing the density in the city. And these are a whole lot of studies, and this is not what we're saying it's going to be like, but what we do is we put ideas together and structures and forms together to explain how this city could be and how it could work more efficiently. So again, these are some of the drawings and some of the CGIs that have been prepared to show the possibilities for how these spaces could be used and regenerated, creating different hubs within areas, how to put in the residential areas. buildings through the space. So it's a really exciting project, and I think it's a really, Newcastle's a really, really exciting place to be at the moment. Culture. So again, I mean, I think most of us know this, but you know, there's just been this huge gulp over the past, you know, probably 20 or 30 years for popular culture to think, what the hell have we done? You know, we had this amazing culture in this country, Indigenous culture, and we basically, I don't know if I can swear, but we basically fucked them over, and everyone kind of knows that. So I think now there's a gulp about, look, what can we do to hold on to as much of that and nurture that and those sort of things. This is a project that we've been working on in the Kimberley, and there's a native plant that's really high in vitamin C called a gubbage plant. And one of our directors of architecture has been working with the elders there. This is the guy, Bruno Dam, who's one of the elders there, about creating a building for them. This is the gubbage plants. That it's just a beautiful, I mean, it's just, the photos are so gorgeous, I have to put them on there anyway, but creating a building for them that they can sort the gubbage seeds out when they, berries out when they pick them, which is basically in the monsoon period. So it's very rainy, very humid. You know, it's a very low-cost project. This is Bruno, he's great. So this is going to be probably constructed at the end of this year, and it's all flat, just very, very simple flat pack timbered structure. But basically, it's got a roof over it that protects it from the rain. It's got really simple openings that let the air flow through. But I think the most important thing that the elders really wanted us to consider is they didn't want it really engaged to the ground. They wanted space under for the air to flow through. They didn't want it to feel like it's been pulled out of the earth or dug into the earth, and that was a really important thing to them. So taking those sort of cultural considerations in, you compare a building like this to the first images I showed you of Carlo Scarpa and David Chipperfield, you know, which are just beautiful images that you just want to, you know, roll around in. It's a very different aesthetic, but in terms of what it's delivering, you know, I think there's a real freedom to what this is delivering to allow people to do what they need to do in the space. So here's some more images of that. So accessibility and duty of care, I think we all know that. For architects and designers, we do think, oh my God, it's boring, but it's really important. And I've just got some snapshots of some little detailed things that we've done to, this is the visitor centre at Sydney Olympic Park, and we put in this Core 10 ramp that actually just allows wheelchair access into the building. This is another one that we did at the Diamond Hotel, and again, trying to work on a dramatic experience. This one I put in, which is hard to see, but this is actually at Westfield in the city, and there's a high, if you see this high wall through here, which is all glass louvers, so there's basically an issue at Westfield that they have to have their handrails high, like 1600 to 1800, because the problem they have is people actually jump over the edge of the mezzanines, and it's happened at Bondi Junction, and it's a reality. And we were told, okay, this is a restaurant, you've got to put your handrail up this high, but who the hell wants to sit next to a handrail that high? So again, it's about resolving some details, and we created this glass louver detail, so it felt more of an experience that you're sitting in a sort of indoor-outdoor area rather than dealing with a big, ugly handrail through the space. Experimentation, and I think this again, freedom, there's always, you know, the idea of freedom is always going to be about experimentation. And look, we're quite a commercial practice, so I haven't, you know, when I show you something that's experimentation, I'm not going to show you something that is, you know, a small little installation or a thing like that. I'm talking in terms of commercial parameters and what you can do to experiment a bit. And the issue with commercial projects is they need to stack up from a financial point. Basically, they need to sell, so they've got to be marketable. This is a little project that we did in Alexandria, which was 22 apartments for a developer client of ours who gave me a really low budget to do their display suite. And he actually really wanted to do something that he felt was not like every other multi-unit job, which as a designer, you know, is the brief that you die for. So what we really looked at, and again, for single residential, it's probably not that mind-blowing, but for multiple residential, you know, we looked at basically breaking up all the elements. So the kitchen's actually all different separate elements running through the space. We've got the fridges in these beautiful big cabinets that come off the floor, so they feel like pieces of joinery and they're a bit more crafted. Running terrazzo through the bathrooms. I mean, my business partner and I in interiors, have gone on a hate campaign for glass in bathrooms because it always looks crappy. So, you know, through our work, we're really trying to put this thing of some solidity into showers, and actually defining spaces even in a small space is totally fine, even though the agents always get scared about it. So again, it was just putting some nice detailing through. Again, it's low cost in terms of that end of the market, but again, just pushing some things through. This is another one that we did in Dank Street in Waterloo. And again, it was just, even the idea of running the brickwork walls through is a big deal for a developer to actually change their thinking about those sort of things. Steel framed windows, you know, putting some parquetry and some individual kind of personality through the spaces. So it mightn't appeal to everyone, but it pushes those things through. So, I mean, that's just important for your own headspace. You can see too, yeah, we got rid of the glass. Got rid of the glass again in the shower. So again, yeah, for your own sense of freedom and development. Heritage I thought was a great one because it is very, very, very restrictive. And this is the Harbour Rocks Hotel that we worked on, which is in the Rocks. And actually a nightmare of, you know, different bodies that you need to get approvals through. But fundamentally, you've got to step back and say, the reason that that's there is it's about preservation, and it's not just what we want or our client wants for the space, it's about a future for that. It's about what that means to Sydney and thinking beyond yourself. So there's all good reasoning behind all of those restrictions. So it's really about working with them and taking it through. And essentially what we did is we stripped there was a lot of plasterboard and all sorts of things on the existing structure, so we stripped a lot of it back to expose the stonework, created this really green outdoor space and existing sort of terraces, so there's different experiences running through the building. Inserted some new, this is the bar, sort of as you come off the entry area. We put some silver travertine through there because the texture really worked beautifully with the old building. Again, you can see we've exposed the ceiling through there. Really, I mean, really, they're really simple ideas, but I guess working in all of those constraints, you've got a lot of things a lot of constraints to work with. This is the main entry lobby, so creating a beautiful residential style kind of experience through there. Stair. Actually, the stair's a good example because there's so many regulations about stairs. You can't do horizontals because someone can climb up and use it as a ladder and fall off the edge. So again, when you've got a low budget, trying to work out detailing to make a stair feel light and lovely is always a challenge. That's a picture of the building. So it's a really gorgeous old building down at the Rocks. These are some of the rooms. Again, really simple. We just painted them back to the brickwork that was there and put in some sort of great decorative pieces through there. Took some great pictures. This is my conclusion too. I mean, I really think that just freedom doesn't mean design without constraint. It really means using constraint to design spaces which give freedom to the user. I think that's fundamentally what I believe in. It's the end.